1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Greetings. Hi, I'm Dr. Kamau Kokayi, and welcome back to the Kokayi Academy for the Healing Arts. Well, in the last segment of this program that I shared with you, I stressed the fact that all medical disciplines, all medical paradigms are cultural applications. And when I say cultural applications, I mean that particular way of dealing with the sick, of dealing with wellness, is really a product of the culture. And when I say a product of the culture, in part and most importantly for us, we're talking about how do people live in the world? How do people embrace reality, or what is the reality that they actually create? Such that based on whatever cultural attributes are there, people will tune in to different aspects of reality. Now, these reality models that they're functioning out of have to be understood in their own terms because the rules and laws are different. Example, Chinese medicine and allopathic medicine, right? They have just different ways of thinking that have to be judged on their own terms. But what's actually happened in the West, while the West won't in many instances respect the medical models, they're saying, well, ours is scientific and this is whatever, right? They will respect physics. And physics has progressed to such a point that in using physics, we can actually see why we are still grappling with all this division in terms of how people are approaching health and the human body. So what I mean by that is that according to your culture, it allows you to focus in on a particular part of reality such that there are certain senses or certain aspects of that reality that are really being focused on. For instance, in the West, the dense part of the body, the very mechanical tissue, biochemical basis of the body is a hallmark of understanding, right? In Chinese medicine, in order for Chinese medicine to have developed, at some point, somebody was so tuned into electromagnetic energy that they could feel all the points. And then if you were to think of traditional African medicine, where basically a person has to be psychic in order to practice or be attuned into dreams, then they're going to they're tuned in to a whole different level of this vortex. Now, why is that important? It's important because we want to have some common ground in understanding how these different systems fit, where and how they can be used. Let me present 3 cases to you. The cases are all cases of hives, right? Everyone's seen a hive, has had a hive. They're all cases of hives. And I want to tell you the 3 different ways or the 3 different levels that these cases were approached on, that it just happened to be relevant for those cases. So in the first case with the patient with hives, it turns out that they have a yeast condition. It's an overgrowth, right, of an organism that's there because there's an imbalance in the flora. So as a result, the toxins from this yeast have somehow caused the person now to have chronic hives. So when I biochemically treat that with a drug or medicine, that goes away and you do something to balance the flora. So we understand that because that's the closest to, I would say, a Western or allopathic approach to healing this. Then the second case with hives. In this case, what I did was touch different alarm points on the body to see what organ systems were weak. Right? So I already had a sense for what was going on in the body. Then I put my hand on one of the hives that were on the body, and when I did that, a strong muscle would keep going weak until I came to the thyroid. Right? So I actually knew that there was a connection between the thyroid and this person's symptoms. And then I could actually verify that, of course, with a blood test. But a lot of times the blood test won't show it. But by actually then, based on this kind of energetic diagnosis, actually prescribing a low level of thyroid for this patient, their hives cleared up. And then we just had to figure out other ways to build up their thyroid naturally. Right? So that's the second case. It's a biochemical in certain respects, but the other piece should sound foreign to many of you, that I'm just touching points and arms going weak. What's that about? So in part, that's something called applied kinesiology, and we'll be talking about it in future programs. But for now, I'm just showing how these, there are different cultural applications, right? Different ways to actually approach the body, at least now on two different levels. The third case you'll probably find the most interesting. And in this case, person had really terrible hives. In fact, I had already tried a number of things that weren't working. And I kind of went back in my mind to hear in her simple language what she was saying about the hives. And I was struck by the degree of violation that she was actually experiencing from the hives. And I used that word violation, and I asked her, is there anywhere else in your life where you experience this kind of attack on any level, family, work, whatever? She thought about it for a minute, and then she said it was in her dreams. In her dreams, she saw people in another room, right? And some guy is opening up a book, and snakes are falling out. And they're just biting her. And she tells me she has a lot of dreams where she's going through snakes and they're biting her. And in terms of the level of terror and assault and violation, this seemed to correspond to what she was feeling. Now that information from her dream was actually a communication that at least came across to me that there was a particular homeopathic medicine that she needed. And that homeopathic medicine was actually made from a snake. It's from a snake, but it's a snake there's what we call potent ties, where there's no longer a single mole or chemical unit of that original substance there. Yet it's working on other levels, right? On other vibratory levels, right? That may be within this electromagnetic field, or maybe it's part of some submolecular or nuclear forces, but there's something else that's going on there that these medicines are interacting with, because that patient's problem cleared up. And this is not an unusual story for homeopathy. That particular rash met some other criteria homeopathically for this particular remedy called lachesis, just in terms of the color and all of that, right? There were just a number of things that pulled it together and said, this is going to be the remedy that works. Sure enough, a snake remedy. In homeopathy, you could look up a symptom like that and find what are all the different remedies that dream about snakes. One of the interesting things that occurred with this patient is that after her rash cleared up, she would actually have dreams where there were snakes, but the snakes would part as she would walk through them, right? This is all in her mind and her perception, but her perception becomes important to me in this kind of medicine. So what I'm bringing up is that it's the level of awareness and where consciousness is focused on within and even beyond this electromagnetic spectrum that can really determine how healing takes place, right? How a diagnosis is made. And of course, we're going to have more to say about these particular disciplines. I want to continue to weave in cases along with some of the science and at least some of my thinking behind it. So thank you again for joining me, and be well.